Welcome everyone to this panel discussion on powerful IT modernization strategies. I am Chris Perry, CIO of Grand Team Corporation. We provide legacy modernization services for various industries, such as banking, financial institutions, retail, and telecom. We also provide robotic process hyperautomation, RPA, and legacy mainframe migration. I'm glad to co-host this event with two other strong players in the IT modernization industry. I have Paul Bengtson and Karthik Masilamani from TMAC Soft that has a global presence in innovative technologies, providing mainframe legacy modernization, middleware, and RDBMS solutions. They will present some powerful, well-established tools and strategies today. Welcome, Karthik and Paul.
Hey, hi, Chris.
Hello, everyone. Thanks, Chris.
I have Ken Lovenberg from Amix Corporation. Amix specializes in distributed environment and omni-channel content management for digital transformation. He will speak about transforming to unified customer data with the omni-channel approach and how to build the next generation digital experience with personalization engagement. Welcome, Ken.
Hi, Chris. Happy to be here. Thanks, everyone.
Let me turn to Paul. Paul, let's start with the fundamental questions. Why do we want to touch mainframe? The iron machines considered as a stable diet of a legacy organizations. In other words, what are the problems seen in legacy mainframe that will even prompt a discussion about modernization of the legacy mainframes? Paul?
Thanks, Chris. Anybody who's currently running a mainframe knows that it's extremely expensive to operate mainframes, not only from a hardware perspective, but from a license and maintenance perspective as well. And there's not too many CIOs in America that aren't looking long-term to, at least at a very minimum, reduce their reliance on mainframes, but most of them are trying to eliminate or move entirely off the mainframe completely. Because of the cost is one thing, but also it just limits their ability to really modernize these legacy applications, where if you're in a distributed environment in the cloud or on-prem data center, you've got a lot more flexibility to transform your legacy applications.
Paul, knowing how organizations are really hesitant to move away from mainframe, can you share any or more organizations that have done this transformation successfully? So we can increase our confidence in what you share.
Sure. Well, at TMAC Soft, we've been doing this for well over 15 years and have a 100% success rate moving companies off the mainframe to a distributed open systems cloud environment. On-prem or the cloud. And we've done projects in federal government, in retail, in banking, insurance, manufacturing, telecommunications. It really spans every industry and really all over the globe. We've done these projects successfully. So the technology has really developed over the years, but we have many successful case studies that we can point to and give examples of not only the cost savings they realize, but the agility and the ability that they've got now to really transform and continue to modernize their environment.
That's a pretty impressive, Paul. And also I have seen elsewhere that 2,000 plus customers, it's a very rich history and a very successful portfolio that you have maintained. Given that, could you please now tell us how we want to go ahead, right? What methods and technologies are available that you have used and plan to use for modernizing the mainframe environment? Paul?
Sure. Well, we've got a proven recipe and strategy for doing this. And really with mainframe transformation, it takes multiple different strategies to do a successful transformation. So the first one would be what we call a lift and shift or replatforming, where the goal is to just take that, that source code as is, whether it's COBOL or assembler or EasyTrieve, PL1, and just recompile it in this new environment and generate a new executable file that runs in Linux on the cloud or on-premise data center. It eliminates risk. It's very relatively quick, especially when you compare it to rewriting applications. It's dramatically less expensive and less risky than doing that. But that's one way. Another way, we have the ability to use tool-based refactoring. So depending on the type of technology you have on your mainframe, we can take some of it and actually refactor it into a different language, whether it's COBOL that would be supported in OpenFrame, or could be something more modern like Java as well. And then the third one, really ultimately, everybody wants to get to a fully modernized environment where you're not relying on COBOL ultimately, or assembler or PL1. And we have the ability with tools to automatically transform COBOL to a Java microservices environment as well. So a number of different strategies depending on what you have currently. And once you're in that new environment, we've got the ability to fully manage that environment for you if you so choose.
That's really great. Go ahead, Paul.
Okay, I guess that just continuing with our strategy for getting companies off the mainframe, the step one is really the first task that we do is to analyze your environment. And we've got automated tools to do that. So before any contracts are signed or any project is started, we do a very detailed analysis of your current environment, so we understand exactly what is there. Is there any dead code? Is there any missing source code? We're cross-referencing all the elements, and we're identifying, are there any potential risks in this project too? So those are the important things that we'd be able to identify, again, upfront before you move forward on a project with OpenFrame. But really the first big step would be this replatforming that I talked about. So this is the lift and shift approach, where the goal is to quickly move off the mainframe into a cloud environment where your costs are dramatically less, and we're not changing anything to the user interface. There's little or no changes to the application source code, and there's just a relatively high level of testing that's done for the applications or that's needed. There's huge benefits to doing this. Not only are your costs reduced, but your database and data is modernized in the process, and your platform is also modernized. So moving from a IBM Z environment to a Linux environment modernizes your platform as well. So that's the step one. And the next slide goes into a little more detail about it. I'm not going to dive into too much of the detail here, but really what this shows is you're on the left side, the mainframe technology stack, and on the right side, the OpenFrame technology stack. That is really designed to be a replacement. It's not a mainframe emulator. It's a true mainframe replacement environment. So the user interface, as I talked about, it stays the same. We're keeping the same application source code. And then we've got replacements for your online environment, your batch, your security systems. And even the third-party tools and utilities that you're using currently on the mainframe, we've got replacements for those in the new distributed open systems environment. And then you've got a number of target databases that are available as well. So you've got a choice of whether it's open source or our own Tibero database. There's a number of options for new target databases in the process. So after that lift and shift process is done, the second step that you'd go to is this fully modernized environment. So while you're saving money, you're having anywhere from 60 to 80% cost savings on an annual basis. This could be funding that future re-architecture project or modernization project where you can then eliminate your need for COBOL or assembler or EasyTree, some of those technologies, and we can automatically convert a lot of this into a modern Java microservices environment. So now you'd have a new user interface, more modern, modern applications. Your data is already modernized, and so is your platform. So all kinds of benefits to getting to that final step, but taking this two-step approach is an important way of minimizing risk and getting off the mainframe quickly.
Thanks, Paul. That is a very good layering off from a current state of the mainframe to the future state where you are moving to a distributed environment. Very helpful that you gave overview without going too deep into the technical elements of it that can be done later. But let me now turn to Karthik and ask another fundamental question. Karthik, from what we have heard, right, kind of in a way summarize this legacy transformation, legacy modernization as a journey. Because the many organizations would be already into some level of cloud transformation, something they might have started, they might be having it. How does this fit in? Because we don't want to be doing this as a kind of a disrupting everything there, but as a kind of it flows into their overall plans, overall strategy, overall as a, so touch on it as a journey. What is the summarizing this in a way so that leaders can see how this would fit in the whole legacy modernization effort? Go ahead, Karthik.
Yeah, definitely, Chris. Actually, the open frame fits a number of IT modernization strategies. The most adopted strategy is the MIPS reduction, where the mainframe will continue to be maintained, and we identify the list of applications to be replatformed from mainframe to open frame, which kind of reduces the peak MIPS and gradually reduces the run cost. In this strategy, we have enabled open frame to access and leverage the mainframe datasets, continue run the migrated legacy applications on the new platform. If you look at the second widely used adopted strategy through open frame is where there is a desire to move off the mainframe completely. There are customers, insurance, retail, and few other vertical customers who have adopted this strategy mainly due to the low risk nature of open frame and its high project success rate in the mainframe modernization journey. Moving to the next slide, the open frame can run on multiple platforms. Starting from the standard hardware, both on-premise and in the cloud, we support all the major public cloud providers like AWS, Microsoft Azure, or Google Cloud. Customers can leverage any of the virtualization techniques or containers where an open frame can take the advantage of such technologies using, say, Dockers or Kubernetes and etc. A typical open frame cloud deployment would be, moving to the next slide, please. Yeah, open frame can fit in easily. This is one question which we quite come across with most of our customers, why they have taken the cloud transformation journey, how well an open frame can fit in their transformation. Yes, definitely. Open frame solution is cloud agnostic and can run the same architecture what it can run on an on-premise on cloud. And this client can leverage the various cloud benefits. It could be on database services, It could be on the flexibility of using the big data, the various integration services, the auto scaling, the main reasons of cloud, right? So auto scaling and high availability that they can leverage on cloud using OpenFrame. Moving to the next slide, please. Yes, this is a little important slide, Chris. So if you look at OpenFrame, it has the broad range of native support, starting from COBOL, JCL, PL1s, the really legacy, right? The assemblers and the easy tree programming languages. We also provide some of the code conversion tools to address the refactoring of the legacy programming languages outside these native supports of OpenFrames. We support multiple integrations right from the end user interfaces, the security platform, or the monitoring and the various data sources. So we, by choice, the OpenFrame supports a wide range of supporting technology, and it minimizes or eliminates the need for rewriting the portions of the migrated mainframe applications. So that's the significant area in supporting the wide range of technologies here. So to summarize in the next slide, the overall benefits of rehosting the legacy modernization using OpenFrames are significant. As Paul mentioned, we have an 100% project success rate, and for various reasons to that, including the low risk nature of the migration, a solid, proven software with a large number of global references. OpenFrame is highly scalable that allows a continued growth for the customer and also for large deployments. OpenFrame enables a little or no change to the business logic and especially the end user experiences. They are pretty fast, especially to compare the other available modernization techniques, which most of the projects that we have handled, we have completed within the 6 to 9 months or 6 to 12 months window. If clients, if your re-engineering projects are delayed or stalled, please use OpenFrame to reinitiate the modernization progress, and OpenFrame can ensure a savings up to 50 to 75%, and in some cases, it gets stretched to 82%. Ultimately, it is a freedom of choice, Chris, for the clients in their modernization journey.
Thanks, Karthik. This is in a way, it's a heavy lift, but you have put it in you and Paul did a great job of summarizing that. Without any hurry, since we have some time, at any moment, feel free to share more about it. These are the foundational pillars from which the Mainframe can move over to the distributed environment. So thanks again, Paul and Karthik. Now let me briefly share how robotic process automation can help with the modernization and its advantages. So all the work need not be manual. Always there is a fear that we have the mainframe resources and mainframe engineers, and they are doing all those things and day-to-day activities. And when we do a transformation, maybe there is so much work to be done. So here's where the recent advancements in with RPA has been with us for many years, but RPA, Grant Team has developed bots that can do some lifting in the automation aspect. Or the bots are able to help with a lot of areas. For instance, in the large number of processes that can be automated, such as the job monitoring, job scheduling, source code management, version control, and server health checks, software testing. Let me touch on, you could see all those things where the bots would come in, but let me touch on 2 use cases. As if you are in the mainframe world, you are familiar with the current unautomated scenario where a developer manually compiles the code, creates the change requests, a CR, for its deployment to production. Operation teams act upon the CR and moves the code to production. This is quite a bit of a time consuming and one to the other. And if someone, FTE or a resource is not there, then there are a lot of other factors that will come into in delaying that. Bulk requests especially can become headache, coordination between several teams, and manual change management is also required. With RPA, which you see on the lower side of the screen, bots can compile the code. They can create and update the change requests, as well as move the code into production. They are faster, accurate, and coordinates all the related activities, processes the bulk requests with ease, and executes seamless automated change management. Another scenario, let me move on to the next one. Here again, the current unautomated scenario that you see on the top of the screen, a batch support team manually monitors incident ticket queues, examines job logs for errors and determines the solution, updates ticket with instructions to operation team, and ops team applies the instruction to workload. This is time consuming and requires coordination between several teams. And also manual incident management is required. Bring in the bots. With RPA, bots can do all these steps by itself. It's faster, it's able to read, update ServiceNow tickets, service desks, and then move it to the right escalation levels and determines what needs to be attended to, gets the correct approvals needed, and it provides the improved business continuity and integrated incident management. So overall, it is not like the transformation or the work in the mainframe has to be all manual. There's a lot of areas where bots have come to help with the transformation itself. So to summarize, what are the advantages of bringing in the automation, RPA, and automated bots? It reduced FTE, could be used somewhere else, and the error reductions, and also build the CI/CD pipelines, automated source code management, automated batch support and error corrections, automated change management, automated incident management, and integrate several functions with a single solution. The big difference with RPA is it's able to talk both to the mainframe as well as to the distributed environment, both to the top of the funnel as well as the bottom of the funnel with all the multiple services that you can plug in. It is not just automation within the mainframe, but it is in the full ecosystem. The bots are able to intelligently route the services, the tasks that need to be done. With that, let me move on to now. Let me turn to Ken. Ken,
Hi, Chris.
as you know, we cannot but stress the importance of data. There's so much of volumes of data that flows in the organization with a mainframe and from different other channels. The data, its governance, it's not just the accumulation of the data, but the value story and the experience that we strive to bring to customers through transformation.
Yes.
More and more organizations realize data is one of the biggest property, the biggest the source, the richness that they have, and that meaningfully used would drive a lot of value to their customers. Given Amit's experience with the digital transformation, could you please share with us what does the 360-degree view of a legacy transformation from mainframe to distributed environment bring? That will be good for us to know so that we can get a full picture of why we are doing the transformation. Not only it's the cost and everything involved that Paul and Karthik mentioned, but also the other benefits that comes with moving to an integrated distributed environment. Go ahead, Paul.
Sure, Chris. Well,
Ken,
the benefits could not be overstated. And Paul and Karthik did a great job in telling the technical story of moving the transformation from mainframe to OpenFrame cloud. But what does this do? And as you mentioned, Chris, data is the lifeblood of an organization. And when you do this transformation, you unleash that data. What does that do? That supercharges your business goals and also future-proofs your organization when you think about moving from that legacy piece to a future piece. Just looking at those two words, legacy and future, the future-proofing is incredibly important. So let's talk about the lifeblood, the data. What does it do? And you mentioned the 360-degree view of your customer. Well, that's super important. Data, the integration and unification of the data, single source of truth comes from data, real-time information comes from data, attribution comes from data, and then ultimately you have an anytime, anywhere omni-channel approach, which ultimately gives you that 360-degree view of your customer. So what do we mean by omni-channel? We could look at that on the next slide. So this is an example of multi-channel, which I think of multi-channel is sort of like horse blinders, right? So you know that your customers are interacting in your brick and mortar. You know that your customers are on the web or on mobile or on social. But what you don't know is how they all interact together. So with a multi-channel, you could see one channel at a time, but you can't really put the whole picture together. Now, if we look at the right side of the screen, now you've got the customer, your stakeholder, right in the center of a whole universe of everything that they do. That's omnichannel, and that happens with the ability to unleash that data, that lifeblood. So let's look at the next slide. So this slide, if you look at everything along the bottom of that slide, CRM all the way through to any other data sources, in a mainframe, you sort of had that situation where each piece sort of sits by itself, and you can have the one view of what each one talks about, like we saw on the other slide, that multi-channel. Now, with this OpenFrame cloud environment that we've been talking about today, you have all of those pieces from your CRM to your website behaviors, your event registration, your point of sales, your customer service, et cetera, all of that becomes unified. And where does all of that come from? So all of this data can come from the web, from wearables, from digital advertising, from email, from chat, from call centers, from brick and mortar retail associates, all of that unified data, and the arrows are pointing one way, and this slide really should have those arrows pointing back and forth, because that creates that omni-channel environment, that ability to see a full picture of where that data is coming from. What does that do? That allows you to increase your awareness capacities, build interest, build engagement, build purchase strategies, build loyalty strategies, build growth strategies. In other words, all of your business goals are now supercharged with this idea of mainframe transformation to OpenFrame cloud. So let's look at the next slide. So a single source of truth in data. Well, data can be really, really messy, especially if it's in separate pockets, right? Like we talked about. But if it all comes together, it comes together with a data strategy that allows you to build data integrity. And that's one of the things that my colleagues talked about today. When you move to an OpenFrame cloud environment, you have the ability to have that universal data integrity strategy. It limits confusion. It centralizes your data. Therefore, you're able to look at your entire universe of data, your whole data lake, and be able to say, this is my single source of truth. Not only that, but with this fully integrated data, fully clean data, I could connect to multiple systems through webhooks and APIs, again, what my colleagues talked about. That allows you to build and expand, and that's that future-proofing element we talked about before. Single source of truth. If your data is truth and you know it's truth, the whole concept of dirty data, dirty in, dirty out, eliminate all that. Single source of truth, very much more possible with this transformation that we've been talking about today. Next slide. Real-time information. Now imagine, wherever your customer is, you are able to see what they're doing, and you'll be able to communicate with them based on real-time actions. So imagine that they're on a particular web page which has a particular product. You can communicate with them, and you can say, okay, this person's been on this web page. He's also been in my store about this. He's also responded to an email about this, and I can see all of that in real time. One key thing increases insights to action. Now think about that. If you increase your insights, then you can multiply exponentially your ability to take action. What does that give you? A competitive edge. And it means that you can meet your business goals and your consumer goals, your stakeholder goals, faster and more efficiently. That's real-time information. That happens with this transformation that we're talking about today. Next slide. And I want everybody to think about, by the way, so we're probably talking to a lot of IT people today, but then if you think about that, what this does to unleash with your marketing teams, your communications teams, your business strategic teams, this will be huge for them. So attributable data, what does attributable data allow you to do? If you are able to say that this data you can attribute the data to certain activities, actions, behaviors, then you know that you're achieving the best ROI. And if you're not achieving the best ROI, you could quickly use your data to change and expedite your ROIs. Your data easily reveals your expenditures, and expenditures can mean dollar expenditures, mission goal expenditures, whatever that is. The ability for your data to help you tell that story and unveil and reveal that story better aligns your data to all of your initiatives. Attributable data comes from technical transformation, moving away from the mainframe to an open frame cloud. Next slide. So what does this ultimately mean? Well, for your entire business, if you can see your customers wherever they are, in whatever they're doing, you can talk to them and they can talk to you anywhere, anytime on their preferred device, whether it's a wearable, a smartphone, a web browser, or whatever comes in the future. You can engage your customer in their mode where they want to talk to you and engage with you. You can talk to them. That's an holistic, omni-channel customer experience. So imagine what your brand loyalty, the ability to build your brand loyalty, the ability to build brand engagement, the ability to get a customer to say, I love you guys, that comes from a holistic omni-channel customer experience. That's the right information at the right time, on the right platform, 360-degree view of your customer, your stakeholders. That's unleashing your data, supercharging your business goals, and future-proofing your technology and business strategies, all with that lifeblood, Chris, you were talking about, the lifeblood of data. So there you go. Back to you, Chris.
Thanks, Ken. That's it's really nice that you could tie that up, right? So let's take a step back. As panelists, I would like all four of us take a moment to kind of recap where we started. We started with the hesitations, the fears about, and the difficulties of moving from a mainframe. Why do we even need to do to what is the value, how there are other companies that have done it, very well established players all over the globe from a different industries, different segments, either it's a federal government or the private or a public sector, very heavily data focused or very heavily operations, all of them, but many of them have moved ahead in that. We looked at that. And then Paul was able to give us the view about how to go about it and different methods. And then he also showed us the approaches that can be done and how we'll go step 1 and step 2. And on top of that, it was really nice that Karthik could weave in that cloud transformation, that it makes no sense just taking a mainframe from that in the current on-prem data center from the mainframe to a distributed environment, Linux boxes in the same data center. It's on-prem to on-prem, whereas the value that the journey many organizations are already involved into, they are into the cloud transformation. So this is not like something that is sitting there as an orphan child, but more as a family where with it can move into and weave into the distributed environment where all of that would come together. And on top of that, Ken was able to bring in the totality of how then the value we give to the data, the value we give to the customers, the value we identify who needs to be serviced at what time, anywhere, anytime. All that moves in together to give this total transformation, a legacy modernization towards an IT transformation, captures that picture. If we miss any of that in our mindset, then we are going to have problems in why we have to do. But if you see from that holistic perspective of the 360-degree view of a transformation, then you would know how powerful that we could use, what are the different technologies and the methods that are available there, and take advantage from that. Let me now turn to Paul then. Paul, could you please summarize what can be our next steps, right? We looked into it. Thankfully, Karthik didn't go so deep into the technical aspect of it, but you can get a taste of that, the appetizers, especially where you showed the compatibility and its coexistence with all other technologies, Karthik. That was a very good, powerful slide you had there. But given all that, what can, as a leader in an organization, either I am a CTO or a CDO or a CIO, what would be our next steps as an organization looking at it? What can we offer to participants to ease their concerns so they can go and tell their director or anybody else how they can go about it, instead of, have putting this apart? Because in organizations where I have done 30, 40 years, we had the mainframe. And then walks in a leader and he says, why are we still having the mainframe? That put everybody into a mode of, let's do something about it. So Paul, could you please summarize what can be our next steps? What can we offer to participants and others to help with the transformation for legacy mainframe? Paul?
Sure, absolutely, Chris. I think the goal in making a decision and analyzing all the different components involved in moving off the mainframe is to do it quickly and get quality information quickly. And we're able to do that. We've developed a sales or evaluation process that can get you the information you want very quickly without a lot of input from your team. We need some, but many times we start with an intro meeting, not too different from what we're doing today, to just give everybody a high-level overview of the technology and what are the benefits and what does a project look like. But next step would be, we have a short 2-page questionnaire. It's really just understanding what your current mainframe environment looks like. What are the different technologies you're using? And once we get that information on that questionnaire, we're able to turn around very quickly a high-level proposal. So we could tell you roughly how much the license and maintenance costs would be, in addition to the project's timeline, what we would estimate it would take to do a project. After that, if you're still interested, if the ROI looks compelling, if that's something you want to move forward to that next level of detail, we can show a more detailed demo, show you all the tools we use, demos of mainframe applications that have been moved to the cloud and so on. But then we would go to that next level of analysis, where if we're able to get access to your source code, either remotely, where we connect into your system, or if you FTP it to our secure cloud environment, we're able to use our automated analysis tools and do a much more detailed analysis of that source code and give you a very detailed proposal that confirms, hopefully, that we were accurate in the high-level proposal, and again, just gives a lot more detail around the different technologies, how the strategies we would use to get off, and any potential risks even that we've identified. After that, we're happy to do small POCs, line up reference accounts. We've got many reference accounts that are happy to get on a phone call and explain the benefits they've seen from using OpenFrame platform to migrate off the mainframe. And at that point, you should have all the information you need to make a quality decision to move off the mainframe or not. And that whole process we can do in a matter of weeks. It's not months, it's a matter of weeks to complete that entire process.
Excellent. Thanks, Paul. Just touching on the ROI part of it, as someone who has done the legacy modernization, when we were hesitant to go on this route, one of the consideration was, what is it for all the effort we do to disrupting? What do we get out of it? And when we did the analysis, and finally, after the proof of concepts and the pilots, finally the estimates came to be almost to one-fourth or even one-fifth. From a $40 million, we went down to $10 million were an annual budget of the return on the investments we were able to get. So just giving an indication, it is not going to be the same every organization. It all depends on, but there's a huge saving that is related to the migration, as well as all other benefits that Ken and you all have shared. So all that is plus factors for taking the trouble to move on. What else can you offer, Paul? Is there something that you would be able to do?
Absolutely. Well, one
Asking
thing,
for more.
as I mentioned, with minimal amount of involvement from your team, or we need some involvement, but there is actually quite a bit of investment and time on our part. But we're offering up a complimentary rapid assessment process where we do this very detailed analysis of your environment. And the outcome of that is a report that, again, gives you all the information you would want in order to make a quality decision, including license and maintenance costs, the project timeline, potential risks, what is the ROI expected. All that level of detail we would include in this report at no charge to you.
Excellent. Thanks, Paul. I think with that, let's move on to our Q&A section. And let me see what we have. We have received a few questions, and I'm going to direct to you, depending on the nature of the questions. Here is one. First question. Please explain why you are not recommending a single-step transformation process to move out of COBOL and other legacy technologies. Karthik, could you please answer that?
Yes, Chris. So the question is, why can't we take a single step directly from COBOL to a modern language programming? Yeah, definitely. As you said, right? So we are staring at COBOL applications, 30, 40 years old, programmed with complex functionalities, various integrations, sitting in a corner and doing a great job. It's legacy again. So sometimes some of the codes are missed. So getting them off to the modern language is difficult. Definitely, it calls out for a huge expense, and it's a high-risk proposition. And by the nature of the modernization technique, right from the reprogramming, I think it's going to take a long project lead cycle, right? So it's heavy investment thought process. But just imagine if we could take this or break down into small blocks and take them step by step. Look at the infrastructure, get them off from the mainframe to cloud. Look at the platform, get them modernized. It could be the data modernization. It could be the platform modernization. You start moving away the high cost mainframe systems and the software associated to that, right? So you straight away hit the total cost of reduction day one within a short period of time. Then you raise the capital from the savings, place it back into the program where you can start looking at modernizing the COBOL to any of the languages, into the microservices architecture, or you can take it in your own pace of no stress in your mind that I'm still going to pay a huge sum to the mainframe systems. So we recommend the step-by-step approach. We have got a great number of customers, whether it is insurance, whether it is retail, or even banking institutions, taking the step in a way it is reasonable, cost savings, and delivering a much more feasible modernization journey of their mainframe assets.
Thanks, Karthik. That's very interesting what you say. Anecdotally, when I was looking at the source code of an organization that was written in the 1980s, and we didn't have the people who wrote it, and
Yes.
many of them are gone, retired.
Yes.
And as I'm looking through the code, and I realized that it had a footnote, a note there, which said, this is a revision of the code that was done even 6-7 years earlier. It was going backwards.
Yes.
So there is a real problem in taking something like that with missing functionalities, business logic, and all that, and trying to do that straight into Java, one of those contemporary languages. There are more challenges you might have to bridge. It sort of helps to know that by moving to this two-step approach, you're bringing it over to distributed environment as is, and then you got an IDE, which is a very friendly, user-friendly, that helps the developers to see how this thing is, where it's structured, and very diagrammatically flows and everything, so they could make the transformation for the next steps, break into microservices, whatever is required. Good point.
Absolutely, Chris. In fact, just to take another point here, imagine the same platform, the open frame, can take the legacy and also hold the modern development of your microservices architecture, or it could be on Java. So it's a single platform. So the customer has done an investment not just to kind of lift and shift, but it's also a future-ready platform which the customer can truly leverage for the modernization. Yep.
Excellent. Thank you. Thanks, Karthik. I have another question here. How does the performance and security compare to my current mainframe environment? That's a good concern, and it's a good question too. Paul, maybe you could tackle that.
Sure. I think everybody, that's one of the things the mainframe, everybody loves about it is the performance and security. But we have, from all the experience we have, our worst case scenario is the same performance as the mainframe. Most times our customers see a significant improvement in performance, and that's primarily because of the cost-effective and easy way you can scale it in the cloud or on-prem data center. So you can easily horizontally scale this to add a lot more power and as much as you need. And the security is extremely high. I mean, any of the cloud vendors, whether it's Microsoft or Amazon or Google, put enormous amounts of cash and technology to work in the security of their platform. So it's every bit as secure and can be even more high performance than existing mainframe environments.
Yeah, I did notice that when you have the RACF in the current mainframe to the TACF that OpenFrame gives, also along with that you put in the cloud segue that Karthik mentioned. I think that concerns about security can be alleviated. Good point. Thanks, Paul.
Sure.
I have one more question here. Let me take this one. What do we learn about the behavior of the customers and buyers by using an omni-channel approach? Of course, that goes to Ken. Ken, you.
Thanks, Chris. Well, customer behavior is constantly changing in general, but especially now with the pandemic, right? And so there's lots of shifts that are happening. So if we go back to that concept of giving that 360-degree view of the customer, that real-time information, regardless of where a customer shifts to go completely online because there's a lockdown or a curfew right now, you can see that pattern happening with that 360-degree view, with that data unleashed. The other thing to keep in mind is that as this pandemic ends, and hopefully soon, I mean, all signs point to great vaccines coming up in the near future, knock on wood, behaviors are going to shift again. But the behaviors that they shift again, people are really saying, are we going to go fully back to where we were before? Or is there going to be a hybrid of the behavior that's changed now versus what's going to happen? So it's really important as we move into the next 3, 6, 9, 12 months to keep our eyes on that consumer behavior. No one really knows predictably. There's no predictions. There's no patterns that we can turn to that says, we've gone through this before. We simply haven't, which means that it's incredibly important to have that 360-degree view of the customer. And, when we think about what we do at Amix and look at that idea of that 360-degree view, that idea of being a full partner with someone, when you have the right technology in place, when you have the right data in place, the ability to crawl, walk, run, and then fly with that data, that's what we do. And that's what we help do. And with great partners like we have here and with customers all around the world. So, the short answer is, Chris, behavior is constantly changing. We can't really project how exactly, which is why it's really important to have very robust data tracking systems in place now for that real-time, anywhere, anytime, any device access to really be able to help that customer. And again, it goes back to brand loyalty. If you could do that really well, they're going to love you. And that's what we need everybody to do.
Thanks, Ken. I am looking at the time. I'm going to wrap this up. Thanks, everyone, for taking your some valuable time out of your busy schedule to join this discussion. Hope you enjoyed it. Let's use the powerful tools, technologies, and the expertise that are available here and now to make the transformation also happen in your organization. Stay connected. Have a nice day. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you, Ken.
everyone.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Karthik.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks all.